Hey guys, it's Sandy Williams from Educational Innovation 360. Today we're having coaching conversation around resilience. Do you understand that it takes so much resilience because there's so much resistance to sometimes coaching in your schools that you're affiliated with? So hopefully we can dive into what it takes to really support your team when there's so much pushback. So when you have so much resistance to coaching, you have to think about, where in K-12 does exist that challenge. So we have to understand also that only 12%, now this was a study done in 23-24, but only 12% of teachers reported being very satisfied in their role of teaching. So when teachers are thinking about burnout and they have high workloads and they're just frustrated, sometimes the coaching program can be viewed as one more thing. And you have to realize they have three things that are barriers, right? What are their past experiences with coaching? Are they unclear about what the purpose of coaching? Did the principal kind of say they needed coaching, right? Because that can give you pushback. And then thinking about one more thing, the system, I feel attacked, I feel abandoned, right? This cycle continues to flourish. So really understanding where our teachers are coming from. I don't have to say why coaching matters, because if you're a coach and you're watching this, you understand how important our job is, our role is. Not only are we doing research, we have dramatic impact, really thinking about expediting teacher years of experience, expediting teacher growth at an exponential rate, thinking about our priority and how it's, looking at post-pandemic research and identifying where our students are, where they need to go, and helping our teachers get there. Really being able to understand what are the gaps and help our teachers improve to make sure they get to where they're going. So I touched on the roots earlier, but really thinking about what are the roots to resistance. Okay, they're overworked, they're overwhelmed, thinking about they're already juggling multiple things. I remember looking at a study. It was something like teachers have something like 120 something passwords to all of their devices, apps. And then of course the apps and devices, how do they interweave with each other? Are the teachers learning it? Is it learning on your own time? So some people see it as coaching as some type of a burden rather than the support feature. Another thing, if you're a coach in the school, they fear that you will judge them and then speak on what you see in their classroom, especially if it's chaos, right? Or the teachers know that something's not right, something needs to fix, but it takes a lot of work to build that trust for your teacher. So a lot of them have maybe anxiety about being critiqued or being exposed in front of the school, their colleagues, their leaders. Also, many people don't know exactly where to place us. They're uncertain about how coaching differs from their evaluation from the principal. So they're like, are you evaluating me? Why are you taking notes? Why are you typing over there? What does that look like? And then where are you going to take that notes? Are you going to take the notes to the principal? Are you going to keep the notes? Are you going to share them with me? That is overwhelming for any teacher, really looking at that. And then, to be honest, change. A lot of people are reluctant to change if there's nothing making them, right? So if the principal didn't say, hey, work with this teacher, I'm looking for them to have growth, then they're like, meh, why change? I got a satisfactory last year. We'll probably get a satisfactory this year. So really important that you and your principal are on the same team when it comes to supporting your teachers and growth. I cannot say this enough. Building authentic relationships with your teachers are crucial. I think Jim Knight says it really best. The single most important factor is that relationship. So think about what are your practical actions that you're doing to make sure you build trust on a daily basis, whether you're constantly, listening with intent. You have the teacher's goals in focus. Even though the teacher wants to work on this, you have the thing that they need to work on in the background, right? Make sure you support the teacher in things that they want to do immediately. Of course, confidentiality. There's nothing worse. I had a coach that was training at one of the schools. There's nothing worse than the principal repeating what the coach said at a debrief in the evaluation. Ooh, it took a long time for that coach to build that trust back again. So really thinking about what are you doing to maintain that confidentiality and build that safety. Another thing, connection. What is your connection? How do you know this person? Maybe you both have dogs. Maybe you both love going to the beach, right? Try to find something that you are connected with to help, instead of just, hey, we're here for instruction and that's it. And then, of course, position yourself. Always do research and position yourself as a thought leader and the expert, and making sure there's sometimes you back out of that role and say, well, best practices are this, but if you want to try something, let's go. But I know that this, really being able to have those genuine conversations with your teacher, but they know you have done your work, you have done your research. So they're more likely to take your research-based thought. And then if you partner or co-teach with them, they see it more as we're in it together. Okay, so remember I talked about making sure you support teachers. We do that immediately to see what they want to do so we can implement it, so we can create wins, right? Thinking about what are you doing to focus on immediate classroom needs. So we're going in the classroom, we identify, management can't, it's hard to do instruction without classroom management. So really starting with having teachers challenge themselves, with your priority, what's one thing in your classroom that you could do right now if you had a magic wand. I always say if you have a magic wand, you want to improve, what would that be right now? A lot of things we talk about, like ready, set, use strategies, whether it be professional development or one-to-one coaching, being able to quickly have those discussion protocols ready so you are ready with the conversation starters. And then collecting data. So you can't tell me as a teacher that I need to make change or do something different when you don't have enough evidence that what I'm doing is not working. So you always are saying, hey, before student participation rates or work samples, or you're talking about showing growth, or you've marked how many times the teacher called on that one student, or really looking at some of the check marks, things that you have been able to document to prove with data collection that we are going in this route because of B, right? Because of this. A big part of coaching is being able to honor their time and acknowledge their challenges, right? To understand how this is different than when you were a teacher, right? So thinking of like, hey, how's technology influence students? We know technology is real. Students are struggling with certain aspects of education. And so when coaches really acknowledge that, it helps teachers kind of understand, okay, you're listening, you're engaging, and it sounds like you understand what I'm going through, right? But looking at time, I remember working with a coach in Los Angeles. One of the problems were that the coach was always late, and we kind of asked, well, why don't you want to work with the coach? What's the barrier? What's the hold up? And she would say, well, the coach is always late. I have limited time, and they usually don't show up and tell me why. So I was just like, whatever, it's not worth their time. It's not worth my time either. Really being able to build that, again, trust, understanding that you are strategically scheduling and teachers are coming first. And I've even suggested for one of my teachers to tell the principal, I have Miss Jane, Miss John Doe, Miss Jane Doe scheduled at this time. I really don't want to miss that. And principals are like, oh my God, yes, go. They need your help more than I need this meeting, right? And so sometimes they are lenient when you have those transparent conversations. Another thing really thinking about is how we're working with our administrator to allow for classroom coverage. Now, I looked at this as two ways. Classroom coverage for coaching observations is great. Sometimes schools lend itself to that, sometimes not, right? And so thinking of, are you able to have the building sub cover for a period so you and the teacher can go and look at another classroom, point out some things that are working, what's not working, right? So that teacher understands that we're all in this together, that I can kind of sometimes you use my break or use this session to plan for a sub, and then I can actually go see what that looks like. Also, thinking about creating a resource bank, ready-to-use materials, ready-to-use resources, that really would save prep time for teachers. I've even seen templates that were created by coaches that were given to teachers that really help them with the teaching to where they no longer had to create these templates. And then, of course, being flexible. One of the coaches I recommended was, hey, if she doesn't have time, walk with her to her next event, right? And it was only that one time, but the teacher was like, I'm so sorry. So the debrief happened in the hall. It was a quick debrief of a session. The teacher was happy. The coach was happy. Now, is that perfect? And is that going to be like that all the time? No. But if you can be flexible with a teacher, knowing that this IEP just sprang up, or the teacher has an emergency something, if they allow you to, like, hey, do you have a couple of seconds? I just want to say, great job. And then you kind of go over the bones of it. And then eventually you can circle back. But how are you being flexible during high stress, during testing, all the things to make sure that teachers feel safe and they want to have you back. So now this can be conflict. This can be a conflict sometimes, but I think your teachers. But I want you to think about how are we addressing this resistance kind of directly. So when you continue to get resistant teacher, then you kind of name what you're observing. Hey, I noticed our coaching sessions are a little overwhelming for you, or they're difficult for you. Can I ask you more about that? How can we unpack that? How can I support you? I don't want to seem like a threat. Ask open-ended question. I'm not unsure what's making this challenging. I don't want to put any extra strain on our relationship. I think we have a great relationship. Often listen. You can hear some of the barriers that the teachers are having. Of course, reframing, reshape coaching approach based on feedback. And so if you hear negative things, you want to kind of course, positive frame and talk about some of the things that you want to support the teacher with. And then, of course, always you should have your next steps in place. You should already have that pre-written, just so you have it in your head, and then have an alternative in case the teacher disagrees, or this is nothing to be set in stone. Always be flexible. And so what we notice is when you have direct conversations, you'll realize it's not just coaching, it's other things maybe being communicated or implemented, and the teacher is kind of overwhelmed. I don't have to say this. If you have a great leader that supports you in coaching, things are great. Your leadership is so crucial in reducing resistance. Your leadership either protects the coaching relationship or does not. And so really understanding the clear separation. I had a coach at one middle school. She was coaching, and even though she had an administrative degree, her job was a coach. One time both APs were out, and she was asked to serve as AP. Just in that small lens, she lost trust with her teachers, and they no longer saw her as an ally. So really understanding your role, understanding having your principal understand your role, and being able to have those clear conversation about coaching. Communication. How do we have communication around the same thing? We're speaking the same language. We went into a classroom. We've normed our conversations. We are all on the same page. If we are focused on reading is our focus. Everybody knows. And so we're framing it as, of course, it's an investment. Okay. And then providing support. So building coaching time into the master schedule. I should not have to say that, but sometimes our leaders need to be reminded of that and how they're working hard to protect them from being pulled as substitute. That is one of the big things I hear over and over again. Oh, our billing sub didn't come. Guess who's subbing first grade, right? And so being able to have the principal value what you do and to have that conversation is really crucial into your relationship with your principal. So look at moving forward, because that's exactly what we want to do, move forward with our partnership. Kind of the key takeaways are, teachers have concerns about time and their past experiences. Make sure you acknowledge that, but continue to have that in the back of your mind. So, if the teacher is concerned about time, please do not go over your time limit with that teacher into her lunch, into her break, right? We want to make sure that we are respecting their time. Of course, relationships is key. Lead with relationships. Also, effective coaching ensures that we have skillful coaches and supportive leadership with our coaching. And then, of course, if you have resistance, you attack it directly. Next steps, always reflect on what's going on, your coaching system, how you can make it better, what are some tweaks, what are some systems you need to put in place to make sure you are constantly meeting people on their, on their prep, on their break. Make sure you engage with your teachers, so you're co-teaching, you're modeling, teaching, and then thinking about how do we continue with our implementation of supporting these relationships. I hope these tips help. This is Cassandra from Coaching Conversation. If you want to know more about coaching, DM me. Talk to you later. Bye.